Okay. In the coaching and consulting world, everyone talks about success, but few talk about what it really takes to get there. I'm Kevin Holly, and this is Coaches Unplugged, where we pull back the curtain and have honest conversations with the people shaping the industry. In each episode, you'll hear how top coaches and consultants built their businesses, faced their challenges, and continue to grow, both in impact and in mindset. No fluff, no pretense, just real stories, real lessons, and real talk about what it takes to build something that lasts. Today, we have a leadership expert helping organizations turn strategy into real everyday action. A Stevie Award finalist and Karakin's Level Up Award winner, she's known for building alignment that actually sticks. Through her work at the Alignment Institute, she equips leaders with the tools and courage to say what others won't. She has over 20 years of experience supporting mission-driven organizations. She brings clarity, candor, and lasting impact to every room she walks into. Please welcome Kate Zappitelli. Hi, Kate.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you so much, Kevin.
You're welcome. Welcome to our show. So first off, I just want to kind of just get right into a little bit about who you are, right? Who you are and how you got started in this industry, and I guess how your role now fits into the bigger picture with what you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, thank you so much. My background is in higher education. So I worked for about a decade at New York University, University of Denver, and University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus. So I had a, a strong career in higher education and got into consulting through a mentor of mine from college, and have found the work to be very fulfilling. So I've been with Karakin's Group 8 years in May, and have become a coach about 4 years ago. 2021, it's 5 years, and really I love that I get to work with leaders who are passionate about their own personal growth, who recognize, as you mentioned in your intro, around mindset shifts that they have control over, and working with people who want to be in pursuit of better. And then my work with executive teams as a consultant with Karakin's Group very much supports the coaching work. So I get to facilitate and coach and consult in those engagements. Our sweet spot is working with the C-suite and saying, you're a good team and you want to get better. And what are your mindsets and group dynamics that are getting in your way? And we have a methodology around having those conversations in a way that doesn't feel personal, but gets the elephants in the room talked about, and where you get to see lasting impact from a behavioral perspective. So I want to just make a quick plug to my CEO, Julie Williamson. She wrote a book called Make How Matter, which is our methodology, that it's so important as a leadership team to not only be clear about why your organization exists, your mission, vision, values, what you're doing, your strategy, but how, as a leadership team, are you going to lead together to bring that strategy to life. And I find the conversations to be so rewarding and confronting. It's confronting as for myself as a leader and for other leaders to say, oh, well, the way I'm showing up is not actually in service to our goals, and how do I need to shift? So that was a long answer, but I've been doing this work for, like I said, about 8 years, and really, really love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you've been doing the work for 8 years, and you mentioned just in 2021 is when you kind of pivoted a little bit, right? To more so
Or
coaching.
I also had the opportunity to get a coaching certification. Started off as a consultant, and the CEO of my company, Julie, said, I think you'd be a good coach. Would you be interested in doing that? And I did my training through the Coactive Training Institute and just fell in love with coaching. So the philosophy for the Coactive Training Institute, and probably all coaches, is you, the client, are naturally creative, versatile, and whole. You are not broken. You don't need to be fixed, and you have the answers. And that really resonated for me. So that's very much my the ethos with which I coach, and then also get to do the consulting too. So I'm a coach and a consultant.
Awesome. Awesome. So being that, you've been doing this for almost a whole decade now, I know there's not really a typical day, right? There's no such thing as a typical day is what we often hear in this industry. But if you had to come up with what you're doing on a day-to-day basis on any given, let's say, call it a random Tuesday, if someone were to come into your office, what would they typically find you doing?
Great question. Yesterday is a really good example. So I'm working with the global leadership team right now. So I had a 2-hour session that I facilitated at 6 a.m. because for the client it was 8 a.m. or whatever time it was in their time zone. So that was a 2-hour facilitated session around this type of work. And I had a meeting, we had an internal call with Karakin's Group. So we always have a Monday morning alignment call. And then met with my leadership team around some business development opportunities, then worked with some other my uh, colleagues. We have so as part of my role as the chair of the Alignment Institute, we have a learning and development program called the Make How Matter Accelerator. So it's a self-directed program that you can take to learn the skills and competencies of building alignment. And have made some changes to it. So got together with my team to say where are we at? We're ready to go live. Then I had a coaching session with a VP for a real estate development company. I've been doing work with him and his supervisor. So I do some group coaching or what we call shared development. I also do individual coaching, and then had another coaching call with another client. She's a communications director for a nonprofit. And then I'm being like, this is my actual day yesterday. Had a call then. I love learning. It's one of my values is growth and learning. So I got invited to participate in a program called the Being Profile, which is another coaching program, and they do an assessment. So I had a class. So I would like started my day at 6 a.m. and ended my last call at 6 p.m., which honestly, that is kind of a typical day. Long, but full.
Long, yeah, I was gonna say full, and I'm sure fulfilling, which is awesome.
Yes, fulfilling. Exactly. Thank
Definitely.
you.
For sure, for sure. That's great, Kate. So, I mean, as far as you're obviously very, very busy. So prior to 8 years, and we kind of go back a little bit further, what made you get into this industry 8 years ago? Even if we had to even go back a little bit further, what was it about the coaching and consulting work that drew you? Is it something that you were born with? Is it something that you really had to? Was there like a pivotal turning point in your life that kind of turned that switch on for you? How did that come about?
Thinking about that, that's a great question. It wasn't I mean, I do honestly feel like I was born to do this, so I don't think that I had that awareness before, but I do feel like now I am living my life's purpose, and I say that with the most sincerity. The pivot was that was feeling stagnated in my roles in higher education, and I was having a really hard time getting out of the box that I'd been put in. I did a lot of chief of staff, special projects roles, and wanted to do more and was having a hard time getting opportunities. So when I had the chance to get into the private sector, into a small business, that sounded really exciting to me. I actually work remotely now, which was a big gift at the time. Before COVID, we had an office. Since COVID, we're a fully remote company. So I think I had recognized that working in consulting and private sector work provided a lot more autonomy, and that was a really big draw. And then getting to do something new. As I mentioned, I am very much a learner. And so I was like, I get to learn new things. This is fun. I felt like I had a little bit, I wasn't growing as much as I'd like to in my previous career. So that was why.
That's definitely understandable, and I think we see that more and more often now, where there are drastic career changes, and for you, this I wouldn't even consider this drastic because you've always been in education. Now you're just going about it a different way a little bit, so it definitely makes sense. We see that more and more. Speaking of that, as far as what we're seeing and what we're noticing in the industry, what would you say are some of the challenges that coaches and consultants are struggling with the most in this day?
Sometimes it's hard to help clients recognize the value of getting one-on-one work or consulting work. So I think that that's like the return on investment is not always as clear to corporate folks. But I was actually thinking about that, your question, and it feels like there is, in the last 8 years, there's been an increase that people want more coaching, not less. And so I'm finding that to be very like that's exciting for me because it does seem like people in the C-suite are saying, actually, we need to develop our leaders. We need to have, from a succession planning perspective, from just a leadership development perspective, folks need to feel supported. They need to have somebody who they can talk to and process all the things that they're experiencing. So I've actually seen an increase in the coaching opportunities from a consulting perspective, and maybe this is the case for all consultants. It's hard to get access to the people in the rooms to make the decision. So it becomes a lot of relationship developing. It takes a lot of relationship development and time. So that it's a very long sales cycle.
Sure, for sure. And I think that's something that we've also seen as of late, just in talking to a lot of different the top coaches in the industry, that a lot of coaches aren't really looking for new leads right now, right? They're looking to, get that repeat business, get referrals, things like that, because, if you've got a referral, you've already short of taken a shortcut without having to resell yourself and build that relationship from the ground up. You have the word of a mutual acquaintance, which is a mutual connection, which is great. So that is interesting. What's working well for you right now? You talked a lot about some of the challenges and advantages even in the last few years where people are looking for more coaching, which we is great, right? A lot of people didn't expect that, especially after, we're in the post-COVID years and so forth. What do you think is working well for you, particularly right now, that may not be working for a lot of other coaches and consultants?
Yeah, I'm just thinking what's working well for us as a company, Kerrigan's Group, is we have a very niche focus. So I think that helps us. Like we're very specific. Like these are the types of projects we take on, these are the types of leaders we work with, these are the types of companies we partner with. So I think that helps. We're not trying to be everything to everybody. We have a very clear methodology that is accessible, it makes sense to people. It it's clear to see, like the value is clear. I think that's been really helpful. We've invested a lot in our marketing and making sure that our website talks to people's pain points. I think and we used to really focus on like the value and the strengths, and now we're recognizing you actually need to talk about that doesn't feel good. And then people are more likely to say, oh yeah, that's me. So we've been learning a lot as a company about how to talk about the work that we do. I imagine this is the case for many folks, but like I would say me and my colleagues are very passionate about this work. So it comes from a very genuine place. We see the value of these conversations, and so we're able to talk about it in a way that helps people feel that. To me, I never feel like with my colleagues that we're just repeating a script. So I think that's helpful to be passionate.
Sure. And that's very important, right? Is to have that passion for especially this type of work. I've always said, especially when you're dealing with people, you have to have a passion for people because it's not always easy dealing with people, as you know, right? There's all kinds of different factors that play into it, personality types, and just different mindsets and the ways that people see the world can be completely different night and day, right, from one person to the next. So you have to have a passion that'll keep you in the game long enough to ride the waves, right, that will inevitably come with everything that happens and around the world when a lot of different policies, right, that are beyond our control, right? But as long as we have that passion, then none of that really matters because we truly love what we do.
Yeah. I love so much that you said that. You have to be passionate about people. I agree. That really resonates for me. I'm passionate about people.
Definitely. I can tell, definitely. So as far as you talked a little bit about what's working well for you, what's been frustrating though? What would you say is something that's been maybe not even maybe frustrating is too strong of a word possibly, but what's been something that you wish you could wave a magic wand and fix?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier around just like the long sales cycle. So that piece, I would wave a magic wand to make that shorter and not to diminish the conversations that need to happen and giving people time to process where in their organization they need help, just to get the people the help sooner, right? Like that's sort of how I see it. But that is maybe part of being in business. As being a small business, that's just how it works. So I think that's something I'd wave a magic wand around. So probably and you keep mentioning this, which I really appreciate, around different mindsets. There's sometimes, in my experience, the leaders who need the coaching don't have the awareness that they need the coaching. Like there's something there, right?
Yeah.
Like how do you, and you don't necessarily want to mandate it for folks, because coaching, from in my experience, works best if you are asking for it and you're coming and you want it, as if it doesn't always work so well if you're being told you have to be coached. But I think the magic wand is something around like maybe some more emotional intelligence for certain people to recognize I could use some help. But that's probably the case in lots of industries.
For sure. No, for sure. But no, you bring up that's a very valid point specifically for this industry, as you mentioned, because there's so many different options, right? There's so many different things out there that are constantly pulling our attention and grabbing at our interest. You do a quick Google search and there's thousands and thousands of coaches and consultants that say they can help do XYZ. That's why number one, you mentioned that you all focus on a specific targeted niche. You're not just the jack of all trades, right? Which is great. You're focused on the people that are particularly looking for what you are offering. And then secondly, the passion for it. So those two things hand in hand, there's no wonder why you are where you are today.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the recap. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So as far as the industry, we talked about what's working well, right? We talked about some of the things that have been frustrating. One thing I've noticed is the onset and the expansion of AI, obviously. Speak us a little bit to as far as what how you're able to adapt to the shifts right now with AI and artificial intelligence, right? We're in the coaching space where AI, of course, cannot replace that human touch and that relationship building entirely. But we found that many coaches have been finding ways and creative ways at that to utilize AI to scale operations, to further those relationships, so on and so forth. Can you speak to any ways that you've been able to, or things that you've noticed in that realm?
Yeah, I use AI a lot. I find it to be a very helpful thought partner. So specifically with coaching, sometimes I like want to ask a follow-up. Like it might like I'll have the session and then I'll have some notes and I want to give the person some field work or some good inquiries to think about before our next session. And I like to use AI as a thought partner, like based on what this person shared, what are some good questions I could ask, which I always find them to be really helpful and spot on. Then in the I'm a proponent of AI, I guess right there. At Karakin's group, we're really it's one of our strategic initiatives is to how like to use AI in our work. So I find it really helpful when I'm doing interview synthesis to take transcripts and then put the transcripts in, of course, take out client confidential information and ask for themes and bullets and like that work that would take me 3 hours to do. It can be, it happens in 30 seconds, which I'm like, wow. And it's usually better than what I would have done. So
Yeah,
I so appreciate that from a time saving perspective. And then that, to your point, like gives me more time to be creative and think about what are some, like exercises I could do with somebody to help them shift their mindset versus I'm spending all this time just going through notes and, doing kind of the more it's important work, but it takes a lot of time. So I find AI is a helpful partner there. And I was just talking with a client this morning and she works in the accounting industry and she was saying how they're really working to shift the mindsets of the accountants to this, that like it is a time saver. It's not going to replace your job, but you need to step up. There's an opportunity for you as a leader to step up and then use AI as a tool to help you do the more rote tasks. So that's the conversations I've been in a lot of is like, how do we shift our own mindsets and see AI not as a threat, but as an opportunity? So I think it's really exciting.
for sure. For sure. I agree. Obviously with the work that we do, we specialize in that. And it's you're right. It's 5 years ago, even 3 years ago, even we would have never imagined the amount of time, like you mentioned, 30 seconds, you can take an entire 2 hour conversation or interview or document and literally pull out all the key points that you're looking for, and it does it in a matter of less than a minute. It's a game changer, right? That's the simplest way to put it, not just for this industry but for a lot of industries. And while there are a lot of people, right, in various occupations right now that are worried about AI replacing them, it is settling to know that at least in this industry, there is still a need for what coaches and
Yeah.
consultants do, all right? Because, AI can be a tool or an opportunity, create an opportunity for us, but there's no reason why we should ever see it as a threat for the work that we do, which is definitely very true. So I appreciate your insight
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I agree. I would be very surprised if at any point, right, you'd hire like an AI bot to coach you or to
Right.
facilitate, a leadership team session. I agree. I mean, I don't know if that's short-sighted, but I have the same feeling like you do. Like, I don't think I'm going to be replaced by AI personally in the work that I'm doing. Yeah.
Definitely. Exactly. Exactly. What are some of the I do want to hit on this just because I'm curious on what your take is on this, Kate. What are some of the misconceptions that you would say people have about this industry as a whole in 2026?
Maybe, and then just to clarify, the coaching industry.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I have like appreciated what you said earlier that if you do a Google search, you'll see a whole bunch of people who can claim that they will be able to support you in this way. So I think one misconception is like there are actually there's a credentialing body, the International Coaching Federation, that is very robust and rigorous. There are credentialed programs that take time and effort and cost money to go through. So it's not Like I just read a book over the weekend and then I put up a sign and said I'm a coach. Like I went through a very rigorous certification program. I got my ACC, the Associate Certified Coach certification through the ICF. Like it's, I put a lot of effort and time to it. I have to maintain my ACC certification. I have to do continuing professional education credits. I have to have a mentor coach. There's a lot of things that I'm doing behind the scenes to learn and grow and be the best coach I can. I think maybe another misconception is that coaching is therapy. And in my
Yeah.
experience, it is different than therapy. I'm sure there are some lines that get blurred, but what I love about coaching is it's very forward focused. And my experience of therapy, and I've obviously been in therapy, my mom's a therapist, is more past focused or could be. So I think sometimes people are like, well, I don't want to do coaching. Like, I don't need to rehash the things that happened to me when I was 5 years old is, so I like that it's like today. Where are you today? Where do you want to go in the future? And how can you get yourself there? So that's, I think, a misconception people have.
For sure, for sure. And one thing I've heard recently is that coaching basically is holding a mirror to them and letting them see who they
Mm,
are and where they could be. Right. It's a lot of times people, it was what I found is people, they look to coaches to be able to tell them what they should do next. When really their coaches are just a guide, right? They guide you, they show you exactly where you are, they hold a mirror up to you to show you in some cases what's obvious right in front of your eyes, but maybe you just miss it, right? And you're able to basically become better and go further because you have that. And then to your point with therapists, that's funny because you'd be surprised how many people see therapists and coaches as very similar. And you highlighted the key
mm,
difference there is, when you're coaching, you're not really focused on the past, right? You're not talking about where they were. The whole idea is to get them to where they want to go. So I think that you hit it right on the head there as far as just the misconception that a lot of people outside the industry have about the industry, which, I think our listeners will certainly appreciate you bringing that to light for sure.
I really like that too. That I have heard that, but thanks for the reminder around the mirror. I think that's exactly right. And to do it in a way that still feels supportive, right? As opposed to like, wow, look how messed up you are, right? Like that's not the energy. Just to your point, like this is reality, this is what is, and how do you want to shift? So I like that the mirror piece. Yeah,
Exactly.
is to do more keynote speaking, which at this moment feels a little terrifying, but I'm excited to get more coaching on how to do that and be successful in that. So that's absolutely a goal of mine. I am starting to do more writing and I have some like old mindsets there that I'm working through my own limiting beliefs around my writing that I'm facing and I'm working through them. But I would like to I am going to start writing more and contributing to the thought leadership and from a writing perspective. So that's where my focus is right now is putting out more articles and then definitely being more on stage or on platform.
Awesome. Awesome. Have you ever done a keynote speaking engagement before or no?
No, I haven't. I've facilitated a lot of like sessions with 300 people, but they're facilitation sessions, so they're a little different. But no, I have yet to do my first keynote.
You seem like a natural, so I see you doing very well at it
Well, thank you. Yeah,
for
I,
sure.
I have a vision. I have a vision for it. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. That's awesome. Where can our listeners connect with you?
Kerrigan's group is a great place, and I'm on LinkedIn, Kate Zappitelli. So yeah, that's probably the best places.
Perfect, perfect. So LinkedIn, Kate Zappitelli, and also Kerrigan's Group. Is there like a website there for Kerrigan's or Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah, it's the like www.kerrikansgroup.com, and Kerrikans is spelled oddly Karrikans. So it's a really cool story actually. Our company was founded by his name is Peter Sheehan. He's from Australia, and then he came to the U.S. He's actually a keynote speaker and started the consulting practice. And they were originally called Change Labs, but needed to have a new name. So Karrikan, the word Karrikan, is an Aboriginal word from Australia that is a chemical found in the compound, like when plants are burning like in a forest fire. It's a compound found that catalyzes growth. So keratin is around catalyzing growth, but that's where the name came from. So it's slightly hard to spell.
Wow, that okay, got it. That's interesting. I didn't know that either myself. So that's very, very interesting. I never thought about that word being a derivative of another meaning. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun.
You mentioned that the goal for if you could wave a magic wand, you would find a way to shorten the sales cycle, which is what again we hear that often. You know, people are in our industry, obviously, the ones that we're targeting, whether it be C-suite leaders, whether it be just non-C-suite leaders, right? This is an ever-changing world right now where people are always on the go. What do you think it would take to be able to accomplish that? To being that your primary focus would be to shorten the
Mm.
sales cycle to, I'm assuming you mean in order to be more effective, help see growth a little bit quicker for your clients. What do you think is something that would help push that along for you?
Yeah, well, and I actually in that context, I meant literally like selling the work, that sales cycle would be shorter. But for growth for clients, I think it's a really great question. What this the people who have found the most success in my experience are willing to look in the mirror and to your point earlier and say, this is where I need to shift. Sometimes I have coaching clients where the coaching was more mandated by their supervisor, and sometimes those conversations get focused on like what the other person is doing and how they're not showing up as a great leader or they need to change. And so to shorten the transformation cycle is around starting the self. Like I need to change, whether or not the other person changes, right? Like I have control over that. I need to focus on that. Maybe I need to ask different questions. Maybe I need to listen more. Maybe I need to change the way I communicate. Maybe I need to whatever it is like that I need to do. That's where people find the most success as opposed to spending the entire coaching call complaining about their boss. Right? Like that only goes so far. Like the boss, you can't make the boss change. You can only change yourself.
Only change yourself. That's very, very, very true. Very true. You can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Definitely. So just to kind of wrap everything up and bring it all together, what advice would you have? Or if there was one final word you would like to leave with our audience today, whether it be a newer individual in this space, in the coaching and consulting industry, or even if, let's say, someone who's been around for a little while and maybe they're going through their own struggle in their business with navigating the changes and so forth. What advice would you have, or one last word you would want to share with our audience today?
This is a super coachy thing to say, but I do believe it to find the gifts and opportunities in all experiences. I've found for my personal life has helped me, that has helped me tremendously. That's advice I share with other people, but that's a mindset, right? That's a choice you have to make to find the gifts and opportunities. But that I find that to have been transformed my life personally.
Beautiful. Very beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Kate. I appreciate all the insight that you've shared. And like I mentioned, our listeners will gain tremendous value from everything you've shared, just from all the way from your background to what is working well for you all right now. Which again, we spent some time talking about the passion that you have and the focus that you all commit to your specific niche and strategy, which is working well. So we appreciate everything you've shared. And to our listeners, thank you all for listening and for being a part of a conversation that is redefining what it means to grow, lead, and create impact. If today's episode resonated, please share it, follow along, and keep the energy moving forward. Because the future of coaching is not written by chance, right? It's written by those who are willing to evolve. I'm Kevin Holly, and until next time, keep building something extraordinary.